Hey, welcome back to the Stash. There's something really special about this series. From the very first issue, Ultimate Spider-Man has felt like a breath of fresh air, like someone finally remembered why we fell in love with Peter Parker in the first place. It's bold, it's heartfelt, and it's been doing something we haven't seen in a long time, letting Spider-Man finally grow up. And with that growth has come something rare. A version of Peter Parker who isn't constantly losing everything, but instead has something worth holding on to. That's something being a family, a life, a sense of purpose that goes beyond guilt or tragedy. It's been emotional, grounded, and at times genuinely inspiring. And week after week, it's felt like we've been witnessing a Spider-Man story that's finally unafraid to evolve. But as much as I love this run, the latest issue left me with a feeling I hadn't felt before. Not disappointment exactly, but just distance. Like I was looking at something I wanted to feel closer to, and the more I sat with it, the more I realized why. So join us today as we go over Ultimate Spider-Man issue 15, what worked, what didn't, and why I think this issue says a lot about the strengths and the limits of the story Hickman's trying to tell. Before we get into that though, I want to take a quick second to say that here at The Stash, we're trying to reach 11,000 subscribers before the end of the month. It's a huge ask, but with your help, I know we can do it. So if you like Spidey or just comic content in general, feel free to stick around and maybe hit that subscribe button. But anyway, with all that being said, let's jump right back into the video. So our story begins with the Parkers out of town thanks to the events of Kraven's Hunt. Luckily though for Peter, even after everything they've been through, his wife Mary Jane is holding it all together, seeing the entire getaway as a vacation. Peter expresses his worry with how he's meant to be helping people, to which MJ reassures him he is. He's helping his family. Soon after, a man named David talks to the Parkers, but once May tells him that they plan to go check out the Archers soon, David immediately gets in Peter's face, questioning which one. Once told, he quickly warns Peter to stay clear of that area, for it's a well-known spot for people mysteriously disappearing. And so with that, MJ gives Peter a strong hint as to what he should do. Later on, Richard is texting back and forth with Felicia, with her bragging about pulling off a heist. But just when he's about to try to ask her out, the signal cuts off. But that's also when the amazing Spider-Man leaps onto the scene. Peter expresses some genuine concern over working with his son, especially after what happened to Harry, and so Pete decides to set some new rules with the suit. The most important one being that if there ever must be a choice between saving him or Richard, the suit must always choose Richard. With that done, Spider-Man and Spider-Boy swing into the area David from before warned them about, when suddenly Peter's spider sense blares as the Sandman transforms and grabs him. But then when he throws Spider-Man, a countdown begins to blast, and once completed, it sends a massive shock through to its captive. But that doesn't stop the Sandman from trying again. He pulls himself back together and grabs Spider-Man once more, only to be shocked for another time. The cycle repeats again, but this time, Richard must find a way to stop it. And so using the strength and power of the suit, he manages to nullify the electric shock. Immediately, Sandman's expression shifts from anger to a sense of disbelief. And with the pain finally put to an end, he thanks Richard for stopping it. It's even been almost 3 years since he's last spoken. Richard tells him it's no problem, but then questions Sandman on what he is exactly. He explains he's just a normal person who got too curious. AIM managed to catch him after he cut through the fence and snuck onto their base. The Sandman roughly knew about their dodgy experiments, but he didn't realize he'd become one of them. And so after they saw his true potential, they made sure to build the tower to forever keep him at bay and left him there. But now, thanks to his two heroes, he's finally free. Later that night, Peter and MJ lay down upon some webbing. The two flirt a little before Peter asks if Mary Jane has had any luck with reaching Gwen. She confirms that she hasn't managed to speak to her, but she did see photos of Gwen at Harry's funeral. Then MJ asks Peter when's the last time he's spoken to Ben. Peter tells her he's meant to check in tomorrow, and once tomorrow arrives, Peter does just that. But something is wrong. Ben makes it clear that he can't speak at the moment by playing the call off as a life insurance company checking in. And once the call is ended, he joins back in on the conversation being had with his partner in the press, J. Jonah Jameson, and the Kingpin. Ben asks Wesley why they're here. Wesley explains that their recent efforts have been on their radar, so to speak. And because of that, they plan to do something about it. Ben and Jonah stand their ground, but that's when the Kingpin completely changes everything. Wesley hands them a file filled with photos of dead people who were named Ben Reilly. Jonah, in disbelief, asks Wilson if he killed every Ben Reilly in New York City. But the Kingpin assures him no, but rather every single one on the planet. Ben's face drops as he pleads to know why. Wilson calls it a strong response to strong words. Ben and Jonah compose themselves, saying that they'll refuse to back down, but that's exactly what the Kingpin wants. for he views them as a useful tool, one that can separate them from the others. And so our story ends with the Kingpin making one last threat as he leaves. He warns Ben and Jonah to stop hiding behind fake names, or else they'll get the wrong people hurt. Then as he and the rest exit the building, Wesley sticks behind for just a moment, asking if they care to make a comment for the record. Ben agrees, and says with pure determination in his face that when all is done, when wrongs have been righted and the shadow is lifted, he's the guy who's gonna write the obituary. I hate to say it, but this issue just didn't land for me the way the previous ones did. That's not to say I didn't enjoy reading it, there's still a lot to love here, and of course I think Hickman's overall vision for the series is one of the most exciting things Marvel's doing right now, but Ultimate Spider-Man issue 15 left me feeling, like I said before, distant. Like I was watching things unfold from a window rather than being right there with the characters. And I think that feeling comes down to the way that this series is structured, but I'll get into that more later. First, I want to talk about what I still think really worked for me. It's easily one of the most refreshing parts of this series, and honestly, one of the reasons I've been championing it so hard. That reason being how this comic handles Peter's personal life. We're not dealing with the traditional usual cycle of loss and suffering we've come to expect from Spider-Man stories. Instead, Peter has a family, he has Mary Jane, he has kids, he has something to lose, which might sound like a small shift, but it completely redefines the emotional stakes. And to me, that's such a breath of fresh air. Too often, modern Spider-Man stories, mostly from ASM, fall into this trap of turning Peter into this endlessly miserable guy, like suffering is the core of his identity. And sure, I get the whole with great power comes great responsibility and all that, but at some point, the tragedy starts to feel like a crutch. Like the writers and Nick Lowe don't know what to do with Peter unless he's at rock bottom constantly, because for some reason that's relatable to them. But here we get a Peter who has something to protect, who's not just surviving, but rather living. He's finally grown up, and it's kind of beautiful. It's the story we never got. His conflicts aren't about being late for the billionth time or living back with Aunt May because he doesn't have a job, but rather they're about being a husband, a father, and a superhero all at once. It's such a different, healthier dynamic, and honestly, at this point, I find this a lot more relatable than whatever ASM has been pumping out for almost 2 decades. I think that's why the relationship stuff here feels so meaningful to me. We're too used to Peter and MJ's relationship being a complicated mess in the modern day, which in turn only makes this series hit harder now considering we're finally seeing them work again. I adore and have missed this element of Spider-Man comics so much. Just two people who've clearly been through so much together and still find comfort, still flirt, and still love each other. Now that said, I do wish we're getting more from Mary Jane's side of things. Her entire life just got turned upside down. Her very family and the world she lives in just got severely threatened, and so far, we haven't actually seen a whole lot of how she's processing it. It's nice that she's present and supportive, but I just wish that she had more of a spotlight. Still, I do hope that Hickman's planting seeds here. I keep thinking back to the classic version of MJ, the one who put on the party girl mask to hide her pain. Maybe we're seeing a quieter version of that here. Someone who's suppressing her fear and grief to keep the family grounded. If that's the case, I think it could be a really powerful arc. But we need to see it, and most importantly, we need to feel it. But where my problems arise has got to be with the format of this comic. Every issue focusing on 1 month, for me at least, is really hurting this book. I say this mostly because I adore a lot of the smaller, quieter moments between the characters, especially when it's between people like Peter and MJ, that really show and build upon their depth within the relationship. And so having this monthly release format, we miss these crucial moments between them and the rest of the main cast of this comic. It makes it seem like nothing really worthy of note happens between the issues. It's weird because Marvel loves doing these annoying point issues, so why can't we just get Ultimate Spider-Man issue 15 point vacation or whatever just so we can actually read the family enjoying some quality bonding time or show MJ processing the events more clearly. Keeping this one release per month thing also puts massive pressure on making sure that everything we see is absolutely necessary, which leaves me asking for this issue, do we really need to spend half of it focusing on Sandman, who isn't an important character on this book and doesn't seem to be by judging the next few previews? I probably would have just rathered something instead, like seeing how Peter feels that his son has and still is risking his life doing the same thing that he himself does, the very thing that costed his best friend's life and now resulted in them on the run. It's very briefly touched on here, but I do wish it dug much deeper. It explains why I love like Superman and Lois so much, because to me that show got it. It gave its main cast of characters time to breathe and grow while balancing out the action and spectacle. But with saying all that, I got to admit, the ending with Ben and Jonah had me on the edge of my seat. It was incredible. The tension was raw, the air was thick, and the Kingpin's presence and authority loomed over each page like the plague. Hickman is setting up something big, and I cannot wait to see how it pays off. The only thing that did bother me though was the last time we saw Ben Reilly was in issue 10 when they published that story, which for the comic, and for us, was 5 months ago. So it harkens back to what I was saying before. I wish that we got some extra time just actually showing us what's been going on, especially if this is now going to be a major part of the overall story. My favorite part of the issue though, as you could probably guess, is easily the smaller, quieter moments we see of Peter and Mary Jane, but specifically the nighttime talk scene. It's the sort of thing I love. Granted, it was only 2 pages. It just adds so much to the dynamic and the relationship, from the flirty banter to the more serious conversation topics. It's short and sweet, but when it comes to Peter and Mary Jane, it honestly never fails. Now overall, with Ultimate Spider-Man issue 15, I hate to admit it, but it's definitely my least favorite of the series so far, and that's tough to admit, especially considering how much I've loved this run up until now. But just because it didn't hit the same highs doesn't mean it's a bad issue. It's far from it. There are still some great moments here, and I genuinely enjoyed reading it. It's more that I walked away with this lingering, nagging feeling like there was something missing. Not in the story itself necessarily, but in the way it was delivered. I think a lot of it has to come down to the format. The choice to have each issue represent a full month in the characters' lives might have worked at the start of the series, but in practice now, I think it's starting to hurt the book. Because when you skip over so much time, you lose the little things, the quiet moments, the relationship beats, the in-between scenes that make characters feel alive. And that's what I've been missing lately. Not more action, not more twists, just more life in between the big plot beats. And that's why Ultimate Spider-Man issue 12 is one of my favorites in the series, because of the fact that it just helps dive into the depth of each and every one of the Parker family. That's just what I wanted more of here, and that's what I'm hoping we get back to. But through it all, I still have full faith in the direction this series is heading in, and I for one cannot wait to see how it all plays out. Oh, shit. Hello? I told you! The video's coming!